Hello, um, I'm going to describe my MA thesis. In my MA thesis, I'm going to provide a new perspective on love, which is love as identification, according to which when we love, we incorporate beloved in our identity, in our self-concept. So beloved is a positive, enabling, enriching addition uh, to our sense of self. So this is the basic view, and in my thesis, I contrast this view with some existing contemporary views like emotion view of love and union view of love, which are very prominent in debate on love within philosophy. So in the first chapter, I basically uh, laid down the view love as identification using examples and some conceptual tools, and I also mentioned three important conditions or important elements of this love as identification view, which are firstly choice, secondly commitment, and then rituals. So basically this view, love as identification, requires that the lover chooses to love. When we love, it should be a choice, a result of choice, not something which we ended up doing out of uncontrol or some external forces. And second is commitment. So it's important that you remain committed to the beloved to keep the identity of the lover. And final thing is rituals, performing rituals. What I call performing rituals incorporate many things. For example, um, um, loving behaviors, actions, for example, taking care of the beloved and spending time together, and spending every year your anniversary, things like that. So it's quite important to perform rituals. So these kinds of loving behavior, loving actions um, to keep, to uphold the identity of the lover, which is at the core of love as identification view. So if I go in a bit detail, in the first chapter I initially introduce the concept, and then I provide some examples. The paradigmatic examples are of love of a mother to their child, and love of a devotee to the god, and someone's love for their profession. For example, I love philosophy, and any passionate philosopher, committed philosopher to philosophy. So these three examples show how this identification view works. So let's go into the detail of the example of a mother. So when she loves the child, or her love for the child involves that she sees herself as a mother in this identity, and where she has incorporated the child into her self concept. So this has become one of her identities. So she has, for example, other identities. Let's say, she's a woman, she's a philosopher, and so similarly, when she loves the child, she gets this one more new identity. And uh, and I would say that love as identification view requires that it's a choice she makes. Even if not in the beginning, at some point she acknowledges it. It can't be that she resists this part of herself that I didn't want. And it, the second thing which is important uh, for love as identification view is commitment, that she remains committed to being a mother. And the last thing is the rituals. She has to perform rituals, in the sense it's technical term for me because I use it in a specific way, which incorporate performance like behaviors and actions, taking care of the giving the child right education, etc. So I do these things in the first chapter. In the second chapter, I contrast this view, love as identification, with one of the prominent views on love, which is emotion view. So, according to emotion view, love is to have certain emotions for the beloved, and the first thing comes to our mind when, at least I thought about emotion, the sort of thing they show in movies, that having passionate emotions. But philosophers do not necessarily understand emotions in form of passions, but they understand it as dispositions as well as occurrent emotions. So I mentioned the views by two philosophers, one Nira Budvar and Robert Brown. They have a view on love which is in say link with the other way of emotions, other form of emotions, which is not transient but which is being understood as dispositions. So Neera Badwar would say that to love is to have emotional orientation, overall emotional orientations, which is at the interplay of thoughts, feelings, perceptions of the beloved. And so to love someone is to have emotional orientation. And Robert Brown says that um, it's um, it's affective emotional appreciation of the beloved's qualities, like if beloved is kind and all. So it's a emotional appreciation of the beloved qualities, inherent qualities. If, for example, I'm cheerful, then my lover would like me. This part, this inherent quality in me. These are views which I contrast with identification. So first I see some common themes that this views has. Both take emotions to be like long-term emotional states, not just something which would suddenly appear and disappear. So this is one of this common theme between both Badwar and Browns. And then the second is that uh, they they both value something. Uh, they both think that love can be enduring quality. So and then if you contrast it with love as identification, then you see some similarities as well here. Love as identification view also completely involved with uh, seeing love as something which you can endure with time. Don't, it doesn't say that love is something which disappears, which it's important to keep one view in mind when we are thinking. The sort of view of love movies generally show. I'm not saying not always, but generally where love is like this passion and all. So if we compare Neera Badwar's view, Brown's view, love as identification view, then they go for more than passions, something for more than passions. So So this is something common. If you see, this is something common between emotion view and identification. Uh, but I also show some differences, and and if we come to differences, then basically I argue that uh, emotions, we can think of love without uh, even these long-term emotional states. And so let's say Badwar says having this emotional orientation, and Brown says this aesthetic, not aesthetic, emotional appreciation for beloved's inherent qualities. Then if you think closely, then uh, we would come up with some cases where, let's say, there are some subjects like someone who cannot for some reason possess the emotional states, someone who is suffering from autism, let's say, someone who cannot feel or experience or expresses emotions. So then seems that saying that they cannot love would be too extreme, or someone, let's say, loses their capacity to, let's say, feel or express emotions, even in these sophisticated form of emotions which Badvar and Brown talks about. Still seems that those people who cannot for some reason feel and express emotions can love. And love as identification view, if you see it closely, then it emphasizes on things like commitment and commitment choice and rituals. Then it somehow seems to explain uh, that someone can love even without having emotions, the occurrent as well as dispositions. So this is something I do in the second chapter. In the third chapter, I contrast love as identification with another prominent view on love, which is union view. So according to union view, to love is to create a sort of union between lovers. So by merging their interests, preferences, values into one. So again, I contrast with the identification view, but before that, I mentioned some of the um, views by union theorists. First, by um, uh, Roger Scruton and Robert Solomon and Robert Nozick. So all three philosophers all three philosophers emphasize on the idea of fusing some aspects of lover's identity into one, and creating a sort of union, or Solomon would call it a marriage of souls of lovers, and Robert Nozick would call it we, that we merge and create a we. And Nozick, Scruton would simply call it a union. So again, sketch some common themes. So all these views sort of talk about merging. Some sort of merging takes place. But if we contrast with love as identification view and see closely, then the nature of merging is a bit different. So in union view, some aspects of identity merge into one. But in identification view, there is merging, but of a different nature. Mother, let's say, incorporates some like son or their daughter into their identity, um, but it's not a merging uh, necessarily into one. It doesn't necessarily require the son or let's say daughter to merge their aspect of identity too. It doesn't, according to lovers' identification view, it is not one of their central focus. Like in as per union view, it's one of the focus that all the uh, participants in the loving relationship, they merge their identities into one. They create we. Um, So merging, there is merging in both views. Merging takes place, but of different nature. When we come to differences, then we'll see that because of uh, the nature of, let's say, incorporating identities into lovers' self-concept, then you, we would completely or naturally see that how union view and identification view differs, even though they seem quite close on certain things. But given that union view demands to create a we or union, it cannot explain certain cases. It cannot explain unrequited love. It cannot to explain cases like all the paradigmatic cases which I mentioned, that mother's love for the child, or devotee's love for God, or philosopher's love for philosophy, because in these cases, saying that a union is taking place, it doesn't seem completely natural to say. But love as identification view seems to explain these cases up in a bit better way, that basically lover incorporates the beloved, philosophy or God or son or these sort of entities into their identity or self-concept, but doesn't demand that the beloved also uh, let's say merge some aspects of their identity. So this is basically the main points from the thesis. There will be a defense quite soon. I'm just looking forward to it.